God never intended to not be a part of everything we do, whether it's education, business, government. And people always say, God's not political. And no, but he is governmental.
Yes, he is.
I mean, Isaiah 33:22,
Yep.
He's king, he's lawmaker, and he's judge.
Yeah.
And that's our branches of government. So he is governmental.
Welcome to Cultural Catalyst, where we teach you how to live fully alive, co-labor with God, and change the world. I'm your host, Kris Vallotton, and today I have Anne Ferrell with us. I'm so excited to have her on. And you are a delegate, right? Yes. Tell us a little bit about what you do. You're a congresswoman?
Well, I'm in the State House in Virginia.
In Virginia?
Yes. Yeah.
And this is your second term?
Just finished my second term, and I'm running
again
for my third term.
Oh
Virginia is kind of unique. It's in California they call it the House Assembly.
Yes.
The State Assembly. So in Virginia they're called the House of Delegates. It's a throwback to when the founding fathers, and we're actually the oldest lawmaking body in the Western Hemisphere. So in the Capitol where we serve, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, George Washington, Patrick Henry all served. So it's very historic and very interesting.
That's amazing. And you've only been in politics 4 years, right?
Yes.
So, well, first of all, let's back up and tell a little bit of your story, your Jesus story.
Okay.
You do have a Jesus story, right?
Well, I always say my dad was an Army chaplain.
I heard that.
And my mom had her master's in Christian education, and all that was before they were even married. So I always say Jesus was a part of our family from the get-go. So I've always believed, and I realized as I got older, I was given the gift of faith, so I never questioned. I never wondered, is it really true? I always knew it was true. But that can cause problems too, because it's like, he's my homeboy, but
exactly.
And you forget he's holy, and there's an expectation. So that's where I kind of went south a little bit.
Was your dad or grandfather also a delegate?
My father-in-law.
Your father-in-law.
My father-in-law. And that's interesting, too. He served for 30 years in the House of Delegates from Virginia Beach, a different part of Virginia Beach. And when he was beloved he was kind of in the Reagan, Tip O'Neill era, beloved by both Democrats and Republicans. And when the seat that was coming open, our Attorney General, Jason Miyares, he had the seat, and he was going to step down to run for Attorney General. So they were looking for somebody to run, and they wanted a Tata, because they're, the name's unusual, and he was beloved. So they really wanted my husband, but he works for a law firm and was not allowed to run. So I kind of, by default, I was the only other Tata in town.
But so he was your father-in-law?
My father-in-law.
Is he still alive?
No. As a matter of fact, he died a week after I won the primary. So we have a great photo of him, like in a wheelchair, but he's holding up my palm card. And it was really special. And interesting, there's not a day that goes by I don't think about him, because he really was a fabulous man.
Was he your
true
inspiration
statesman.
for running? Did he encourage you to run?
No. I had no interest. I always voted. We would host meet and greets. I was involved that way, always in the background, had no aspiration whatsoever about being a candidate at all. And the party called me again after they realized my husband couldn't. They asked me to run. And I was thinking, absolutely not. But I know God and his sense of humor well enough to know I always say, let me think about it. Let me talk to my husband and let me pray. And so my husband, when he got home that night, I said, Bob, you're not going to believe it. They want me to run for Jason's seat. And he was like, no way. Because he said, he's used to watch his father, and he said, they're going to be mean to you. It's a nasty business these days. He's like, I'm not going to be able to handle that. And I was like, thank you, God. So I knew I was good. I go to bed that night, and this is going to sound dramatic, but it is exactly what happened. First of all, I'm a sleeper. I don't have any trouble sleeping. If it was an Olympic sport, I'd be a gold medalist. But that night I woke up about 3:00 in the morning, and all I heard God say was, I thought you'd say yes.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, are you asking me to do this? And, silence. And then I had 3 major objections in that night. I said, number one, I really relate to Moses. I'm public speaking. I'm an introvert. I get words mixed up. I said, I can't speak. And he said, trust me. Number 2, I said, how am I going to raise money? You got to raise a lot of money for this. We're not going to self-fund it. Trust me. And the third, our third daughter was getting married that year. And this was, this was 2021, right after COVID. Virginia was still shut down.
Yeah.
So we had arranged to have her wedding in Florida, which was open. And it was already set for October, a month before the election. I go, what about Riley's wedding? Trust me. So the next morning, I said, Bob, I think I'm supposed to say yes. But we agreed we wouldn't tell anyone because I was terrified. And oh, by the way, after all that, I started sobbing in the night. I was sobbing.
Lord,
True
don't
tears.
take me there.
I really was. It was that. But anyway, so the next morning we agreed we would pray, and I have prayer people all over the country. I didn't ask anyone in Virginia because I didn't want pressure, but I asked a few people across the country to pray for me because I thought if he's really asking me to do it, I need to make sure it's him. And immediately doors started opening and things started happening, and I realized he really was asking me to do it.
That's amazing. And now, how long was your father-in-law out of office before you?
He retired in 2013, so it had been quite a few years.
So like 7-8 years.
Yeah, almost 10 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so how are you liking being in the political world? I mean, that is a tough world.
It's very tough.
It's
very challenging.
DC 15 years behind the scenes. Now I'm coming back again, the last few, but that is a tough world, girl.
It's not. Well, the funny thing is, I'm my flesh is very sensitive. I'm tender-hearted. I'm sensitive, but the other side is I grew up with 4 brothers, so I'm kind of like I've been beat up on, growing up a lot, and I just really feel I always feel like God has this. He fights my battles. He has my reputation. And I really feel I've never been so tethered to him. So the assaults do come, and they say some really horrible things, and they make up stuff. But honestly, it really does not bother me.
Yeah, Bill Johnson, our senior leader, who we've been with 46 years, there's 3 articles in the last 6 months about his death.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
But he hasn't died.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last one was like last week. And he sent it to all the senior leaders. Goes, looks like I'm dead again. Wow. These people just make up stuff. It's just crazy.
But I love the glory of the Lord is my rear guard.
Oh,
I'm like, go ahead, take your best shot.
Cover my butt right there.
Exactly.
How what role does faith, your relationship with God, play in in politics in your life?
Huge. God never intended to not be a part of everything we do, whether it's education, business, government. And people always say, God's not political. And no, but he is governmental.
Yes, he is.
I mean, Isaiah 33:22, he's king, he's lawmaker, and he's judge.
Yeah.
And that's our branches of government. So he is governmental. And so everything is through prayer, fasting, and my particular areas of interest. The legislation that I initiate is usually in the area of foster children, foster care, and human trafficking, and anti-Semitism. I've carried bills for all of those.
Wow.
And the first one was the foster care. Have you ever heard of Dina Van Hull?
No.
She's part of the Global Awakenings, but I heard an amazing talk.
Oh, the Dina that's part of Global Awakening?
Yes. She and her husband went to China.
Yeah.
And
Yes, I do.
You always hear about people that this happening to. They sold everything and go to China,
Yeah.
and that's why some people don't want to be a Christian. Like, don't ask me to go to Africa. But they have an incredible story, and I heard her speak years ago, like 4 or 5 years before I was asked to run. And she talked about Isaiah 58.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one that said,
pour into your house.
Yes, and like, you want me to help you out, but you bring me these sacrifices, bulls and goats. I don't want that. I want you to break off the chains of oppression. I want you to take care of the orphan and the children and the widows. So that was so compelling to me that when I realized God really was calling me, I said, all right, Lord, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to take on the orphans, and that's foster care. So that was my first bill that I carried.
Wow.
was for foster care, and I carried something for it every time.
Since, Donald Trump's been reelected this last term, because of the subject that you're on, like, how are you feeling about all the deportations and all of that sort of thing?
Well, I do. I mean, even God was about boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very clear about boundaries. And we have to close our borders.
Yeah.
I mean, we get briefings from our public safety secretary in Virginia. And we were told that, it used to be that when drugs and trap humans and
human trafficking
and guns came through our country, they would go to Chicago or New York or Miami. He said now there's a direct line. And all the states, they always say all states are border states. It's true. There's direct lines to all of our states. None of us are safe without that. So we have to shut that down.
Yeah. I think it's really, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we want people to come here.
Absolutely.
My grandparents migrated here from Spain. Your great grandparents probably migrated here from somewhere.
Yeah, Scotland.
Because only the Native Americans are native to our country, right? To this ground, and yet it's really is important that we know who these people are that are migrating here, and that they have our values in mind, and that they don't come to change our country; they come to be a part of it.
Well, it's interesting. During his campaign, I travel a lot, so I'm in Ubers a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of Uber drivers are people from other countries.
Yeah.
Every Uber driver, I would always ask, so are you following the election? What are your thoughts? There was not a single one that didn't say, this is not right. And because, they a lot.
With the deportation.
They were like, the borders, we've got to close the
borders.
borders.
With the immigration.
Immigration, borders, they are like, this is wrong. This is very wrong.
Well, it's tough when you do what you do as an immigrant to migrate here legally, and then to become a citizen. It was set up for you to actually become an American, not just become a citizen, right?
Right.
For you to actually assimilate our core values, agree with our government, and basically embrace the American dream in a way, right?
Right.
And if you don't want to do that, America's like, well, fine, you don't need to be here. You can visit, but if you want to be an American, then be an American.
Right.
And then you do all of that as a legal immigrant, and then somebody comes in as an illegal immigrant. And I think, to your point about human trafficking, especially, so many kids are being trafficked through Mexico, through all of these different borders, right?
It's tragic.
It is
tragic. It's so sad. There are so many that they don't even know where they are.
Yeah.
So
what's can you share a story where you saw God move powerfully in your work?
Well, actually, I had a trafficking bill. This was last session. I had a bill that I was trying to get. So first of all, for trafficking, there are kind of two sides. There's a criminal justice side where you go after the perpetrator, but then there's the victim side or survivor. And I really just chose, I really wanted to do more for the survivor, for the woman or boys, girls. I mean, it's really everyone. And so I've kind of stayed in that part. And so I had connected with stakeholders that are in this space and said, what can I do? How can I help? And believe it or not, this is not surprising, but almost all the victims at some point go to see a doctor. But the medical field, they are not qualified, and they're not really equipped to know what to look for. And so 87% go through and see a healthcare provider.
So the girls that are trafficked,
yeah,
mostly girls, but boys too?
Oh yeah, boys too.
Boys too.
They'll get diseases, or they get pregnant, or
how young are these kids?
Oh, all ages. Like, the saddest part about the human trafficking space is that a big percentage, it's familial. It's family members trafficking them.
Why are they trafficking them?
A variety of reasons. Drugs, money, just a lot of reasons. But it's so sad.
So
And a lot of
the
these victims,
family itself is
yes,
trafficking their own
parents,
children.
grandparents, uncles, aunts.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, it's awful.
And
It's
are
really
we talking about small children?
all
Young children?
different all different ages.
Really?
So anyway, this bill that I was trying to get, that doctor or the medical field, they would have training to know what to look for, specific training for the medical professionals. And believe it or not, I had a lot of opposition from that. And
Why would anyone oppose that? It seems like,
well, because they were like, they don't give us one more thing to be trained on. You know, if we open it up to you, then everyone's going to come in and say, we wanted a training for this and that. So just a variety of reasons they said.
these were training the doctors?
Yeah, and nurses. And
to notice sexual abuse.
to know what to look for, because there are certain things that they could determine that this person might be trafficked.
Got it.
And so it was just going south. It was they were really opposing, and this, I was still new enough that I didn't really know the system. I didn't know how to work, and I just know it was the Lord that just helped me. And we were able to pull everyone together, all these stakeholders, change the wording a little bit, find agreement, find another way in, and we were able to get a bill passed so now medical people are trained. And I just talked to one of the original people that helped me with craft that legislation, and she said it's been incredible how many are trained now. And the interesting thing is the physicians wanted it, and the nurses, they asked for it. They said only 5% say that they felt really equipped to know what to look for.
Well, who was?
It was the associations.
Oh,
like the medical societies.
Oh, really?
They didn't want it.
Well, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
How long ago did you pass that?
That was in 23. I think it was in 23.
So has it resulted in them actually catching more traffickers?
Well, that's actually a good question. I don't know for sure that to that granular level, but I do know that they are trained and they feel much more equipped. So it's got to be resulting in finding people.
That's amazing. And going forward, what do you have in your heart to see happen?
Well, I still have a lot of work in the foster care space, and there's a lot to do in the human trafficking space. So I'll keep those. And then there are other things like I'm on education committee, I'm on appropriations, and I'm on cities, counties, and towns. So there's always things to do on those levels. So I'll be working with childcare is a big issue for me, trying to find different ways to help with, the childcare is huge.
Well, the DOE is being disassembled, right? Like the Department of Education.
Hopefully. People are going crazy about that, but that's such a good thing. More money is going to go directly to the states, and that's where it should be. Our state constitution dictates what education is, so we let the states handle it.
So it just became like another level of bureaucracy that has to be paid for.
Absolutely. And it only started when before Carter, they never had the Department of Education.
Really? What was the original, why did we start? I'm sure he wasn't like, let me screw up education.
No. I mean, I don't, that was a little before my time. I don't know exactly why he wanted it so badly, but it just has ballooned into this huge bureaucratic nightmare that really does not serve the citizens of the different states well. So, and I think people don't really understand. That's why they're getting all upset about it. But they don't understand that more money is going to be coming to the states directly without the Department of Education.
Hi, I'm Kris Vallotton. I'm the founder of Regis. I want to talk to you a little bit about it. Are you a senior executive or business leader? You're ready to really connect with God's heart for your work? Well, we designed the Regis Summit where faith and the marketplace collide. We're igniting vision, we're redefining purpose, and we're forging kingdom partnerships. This is going to be an intimate 2.5-day event exclusively for only 50 senior executives. And we're offering strategies for personal and corporate spiritual growth while we're really redefining what success looks like in the kingdom. Not long ago, the Lord gave me a prophetic word. He said, prepare for the kings are coming. And I'm like, Lord, who are the kings? How do I prepare? And how do I help the kings? And the Lord told me that he is connecting the prophets, the priests, and the kings. And I'm like, okay, how do we connect the prophets, the priests, and the kings? Well, out of that was birthed this Regis Summit. Again, 50 executives, small group of people having a supernatural experience together, all with the theme of leadership and business. It's a gathering where we're going to build deep connections with one another. We're actually going to do some equipping and some prophetic stuff over every single leader that's there. So there'll be prophetic sessions. There'll be, I think, some really profound business insights. How do you lead with the Holy Spirit? How do you actually find your superpower? And how do you infuse that into your everyday life? I think it's going to be fantastic. So I'd love for you to join us. It's May 28th through 30th. It's in Scotts Valley, California. There's a super beautiful retreat center. It's going to be 2.5 days of just really, I think, kind of laid back and yet intense ministry. So obviously, there's only room for 50. So we want to see 50 executives who are hungry to have a supernatural experience and also learn more about how do we join the prophets, priests, and kings. Space limited again. Love to see you sign up. God bless you. I don't know if statistically it's accurate, because you know what happens on social media and on mainstream media oftentimes is that people make statements and then you get involved, you look at it, you do research, and you find out, oh, that's not exactly true, or it was spun a certain way.
Right.
But I think that from what I've read recently, we have one of the most expensive educational systems in the world. The United States does, and we have one of the. I think we're 40th
Least educated. Yeah.
list on the list of educated students.
I did see that statistic too. That's once it was initiated, during Carter, the scores started coming down.
Is that crazy?
I mean, it's unbelievable. But again, that's bureaucracy. I mean, one of the core principles of a conservative is less government.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think the closer you get to the actual person you're delivering services to, the better, right? So if I'm over here in a castle.
That's Thomas Jefferson, which is, Virginia.
Did he say that?
Oh, he's.
I thought I originated that.
Well, I think he got it from you, maybe.
Oh, yeah. I bet he did. No, but I mean, it's absolutely true, right? Because if you're sitting over here in a glass castle and you're a student here in some other location, and I'm dictating like how your education should be delivered.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not in the trenches. Like I'm not close to the situation.
Right.
So I may have a good heart. I may have a lot of good ideas, but I'm initiating things that I don't even know how they're working.
Right.
Right.
Well, the government closest to the people. That's why school board and city councils, all that really, those elections really matter.
Yeah.
Even a lot more really than the presidential.
Yeah, I think so too. So you're running right now to kind of partly to finish what you've started.
Right.
With sex trafficking, education.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Child care, foster care.
Yeah, foster care. Foster care is interesting, right? Because here we have, abortion, which the Roe versus Wade was overturned. Mm-hmm. Everyone's kind of freaking out about that situation in that, the pro-choice people especially. And they're asking a really good question of us, right? Like, what are you doing for these pregnant ladies? Like,
right.
You don't want them to get abortions.
Yeah.
What are you doing for these pregnant ladies?
Yeah.
And I would ask you, like, what are we doing for these pregnant ladies?
Yeah, no, we are in Virginia are doing a lot. And even the maternal health care is very big. And like I carried a piece of legislation 2 years, it has not passed yet, but for 2 years I've carried the adoption tax credit. So encouraging, because we have 5,000 foster kids, and encouraging people to actually adopt these children and give them a tax credit. So Virginia is it's interesting. Virginia is very similar to our country right now. We're almost 50-50. We're a purple state. And so it is hard to get things, passed, things like adoption tax, anything tax.
Because of the tension between the two parties.
They don't typically, one side of the aisle does not like, they like to raise taxes. The other like to lower taxes. They don't like tax credits. So things like that are really hard. But I'm happy to say the human trafficking and the foster care, I almost always have, bipartisan support. One of the bills we passed last year was only 3% of foster kids that age out go to college.
Wow.
But they, so what we did, we passed a bill that we pay for their college. So
Wow.
room and board, books, everything.
Everything.
And so that, what I tell people all the time in Virginia, I'm like, when you meet these foster kids that are young, cast the vision. Let
Yeah.
them know that their best days really can be ahead of them and not behind them. Let them know that if they could just work hard, they can go to college and not have to worry about paying for it.
Poverty is an invisible wall, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you think about it, like poverty in Africa. So I've been in Africa a lot, worked in Africa, Mozambique, South Africa, Kenya, Rwanda, in several countries in Africa. And, if you're poor in Africa, for example, you're living in slums of in Mozambique, there's nowhere for you to go.
Yeah.
Like you can't drive down the street and be in a better neighborhood. But if you live in Chicago, or you live in the slums of California, or you live in the slums of Virginia, you can literally drive an average of 20 minutes, and you can be in a middle-class neighborhood.
Right.
Right? And yet, the truth is that people will stay. I mean, it's generational poverty, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's
a lot
4,
of
5,
times.
6, 7 generations of poverty. And what keeps people in those neighborhoods, in those tough neighborhoods, in the what we might call the hood?
Yeah.
What keeps people? What is the invisible wall that is keeping people in poverty?
I mean, I think that's a very complicated question
It
with
is.
a very complicated slew of answers. But I think, one thing, going back to education,
Mm-hmm.
early reading, they say that if a child doesn't read by 3rd grade, then they're going to be in big trouble. So
Wow.
one of the things we have the Literacy Act that we're really making sure that these kids can learn to read, because if they can read, they can do math, and if they could do reading and math, then they have a chance to get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of that people don't really talk about, but I think about, if you are in a poverty type, household, or
Yeah.
there's alcoholism or drug use or, fighting, if a child can read, or even foster kids that are
Yeah.
just, scared all the time, if they can read, they can escape into a fantasy book, and just really,
Yeah.
it's a great coping mechanism for these people that are struggling with just really severe households.
It's true. The other principle is you can't really become what you haven't seen or heard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if if you've been in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 5 generations of poverty, right?
That's all
and
you know.
That's all you know, right? So there's nowhere there. You don't know anybody who doesn't live in poverty.
Right.
So it becomes
That's part of that casting the vision.
part of casting a vision, and it's part of, actually, it creates even neural pathways. Like
Right.
psychologically, it's like, these are my people. These are the people I identify with. But you're right that one thing that reading does, it creates imagineering, right?
Yes.
You get to imagine what it would be like to not live in poverty, in a
Right.
poverty mindset. And we're not just talking about money, are we?
No, not at all.
Yeah, we're talking about hopelessness.
Right.
We're talking about
Exactly.
a foreboding spirit.
Yeah.
It feels like something's always about to go wrong.
Right.
And I'm really excited for people like you, because I feel like, Isaiah 61's been, I think, my motto verse, and it talks about the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, for the Lord has anointed me to preach the good news to the afflicted. And it talks about the captive, the prisoner, the faint-hearted, the broken, and it says that they're going to be restored.
Yeah.
Right. And then the 4th verse says, then they shall return and rebuild the ancient ruins. They shall raise up the former devastations and rebuild ruined cities. And for years, I'm like, who are they? The ones who are, who are the they that are restoring the city? And then I realized, literally years later, 2 of my grandkids have this tattooed on their body, this verse.
Wow.
Because I've shared it so many times in my family. This is who we are. This is one of our family mottos. I realize the people who are restoring the ruined cities, they're the people that were in the 3 previous verses: the captive, the prisoner, the
Yeah.
brokenhearted, the depressed, the people in poverty. So like something happens when people like you and me go back to those neighborhoods,
Right.
right? And we build a bridge between, I say between the promise and the palace. Like we build this bridge, right?
Right. I
And,
love that.
and we're not just giving people a handout. We're giving people a
No,
hand up, right?
absolutely.
Because they don't need another. Like I grew up in poverty, so it's like I know what it is. That across the tracks is middle class, but I'm here, and that might as well be the communist wall of China or something.
Right.
Because
It's impossible.
It feels impossible,
Right.
right? Not because of what's happening around me, but what's happening within me.
Right.
But with somebody who's broken and who's come out of it, reaches back in to the same places they came from.
Yeah. And tells them
And
the
tells them
truth.
there is a way out.
There is a way out. Absolutely.
And it isn't
there
just-
is a way out.
there
That's
is a
what's
way
so
out.
great. There is a way out.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's not just a way out like, well, get a job. It's a way out.
Yeah.
Like you were made for something better. Like God made you in his image. Like he gave you capacity. You haven't accessed because for generations, the people that you live with haven't accessed that, right? And when you see someone who grew up in the hood, gets out of the hood, or someone who grew up in deep poverty, who grew up in a broken family, like I had my father drowned, I was 3, I had 2 vicious stepfathers. When you come out of that and you reach back in and say to the person, you don't have to live in that. You don't have to recreate that. Those are the kind of people I want to elect.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Those are the kind of people I want leading our country.
And that's, I mean, I want to be that person.
You are that person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. We had a wonderful program for again, I really like the aging out population because they're the ones that they haven't been adopted, haven't found their forever home, and they're the ones that are really at risk for being homeless and going on to drugs. And if we don't help them a little bit more.
These are the ones coming into foster care. They get 18 years old, and
Yeah.
what do they do, right?
And what do they do?
That's you're talking about aging
Right,
out,
that's
right?
the aging out, exactly.
Yes. What do you do with these guys?
Well, we have a great program called Fostering Futures where from 18 to 21,
Love it.
we still offer services. We offer some housing, case management because they really need, kind of like a mom or
Yeah,
a dad,
they do.
helping them.
Like discipleship almost.
Discipleship. But but we also, for Virginia, we have, it's Ingalls, it's the Newport News shipbuilding.
Oh,
They
yeah.
build the big ships and the submarines. They're building a huge John F. Kennedy aircraft carrier. It's just amazing. And they have like 5,000, they need 5,000 employees. I mean, it's crazy. And everyone knows about workforce. So we went to them, and what reminded me is going back, because we went to them, I went to the head of their HR, and I made an appointment with them, and I said, I have an idea. I said, you guys need people to work here. I've got access to aging out foster kids who need a job.
18 years old.
18 years old.
Start a new career.
Start a new career. Give them, and they're like welders. I mean,
great
it's like all
idea.
different things. I said, but there's one little caveat. These kids need a little extra. So if I could make sure they have someone helping them, if you could be patient with them, and you would allow someone, we will provide the resources to help them get there on time, to make sure they're clean and they pass their tests and, all the transportation. We'll take care of all of that if you'll give them a chance. And he said, and this was a big risk, but he said, I used to be a probation officer in another town. And he goes, I know all about second chances. And he was like, let's do it. So we started this program, and it's been amazing.
Really?
And when we first started it, we said, we've got to, what is success? Because what does it look like? And I go, how about if we get one? Because we were going to start with 10, and we were like, if we can get one to go all the way through, that's success. And this young woman, she made it all the way through. She now has her own car. She has her own place. She's thriving.
That's
and so
amazing.
it's not like they have 5,000 people now all hired, but I mean, it's just a little at a time. But again, that part of that, letting them know that there is hope. There is something you can do, and it is achievable.
But it's like breaking the 5-minute mile, right? It's a 4-minute mile. I mean, it's like once the 4-minute mile was broken, which they said could never be broken, like after that, year after year after year, the 4-minute mile was broken.
Right. Yeah.
And
It's
you
exactly
can't
like that.
you can't even compete if you can't break the 4-minute mile in Olympics. You
Yeah.
know? But someone has to be the steel punch. Somebody has to have the breakthrough.
Right.
There's got to be the Isaiah 61 person who was captive, who was a prisoner, who gets out and goes, "It's possible.
It's possible.
Follow me out."
Right.
And we
I
have
love
something
that.
called Bethel School of Technology, and we train coders. And we call it coding with a cause. And one of our deals is to help the At Hope people. And so we had this lady. She's living in her car with three kids, and she comes to our coding school. And somebody actually sponsored her, so she learns how to code. She gets immediately she gets a $72,000 or $73,000 job when she graduates.
Wow.
9 months later, immediately gets the job. Right. And then I think she was working there 3 or 4 months. Anyway, within the first year, she starts making $108,000 or $110,000. She gets an apartment. This is all by herself.
That's
moves in the
amazing.
apartment and shares her testimony online with us.
That is amazing.
Yeah, this At Hope people.
Yeah.
They again, we don't want to give them a handout. We want to give them a hand up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we're actually funding the perpetual poverty.
Right.
If we're not careful.
Right. And I don't, it doesn't work when you just give them everything.
It doesn't.
It doesn't work. And it does, they, and that Bible verse, if you do not work, you do not eat,
Yep.
and they will feel better about themselves when they do it themselves.
Yeah. And if society, I think government has traditionally funded what it doesn't want. Do you know what I mean? It's like we have a single mom, which I grew up, a lot of time my mom was single and thankful. I'm so thankful for welfare, by the way.
Yeah.
We lived on welfare for 4 or 5 years after my father drowned. So I'm so thankful for the compassionate government programs we have.
Right.
We need them. But they were made to be assists. They weren't made to be lifestyles, right? And then what happens is they end up becoming a lifestyle. And the more children you have, the more funds you get. So you have more children, you have more funds. If a father comes into a home and marries, all of a sudden the funds are gone. And we end up actually funding poverty, funding fatherlessness, funding this. And I love what you're doing. I love that you're reaching in and you're building bridges and you're saying, hey, you guys need workers. We got workers. We need jobs.
Right.
And you're building a bridge between them. That's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah, that's been fun. And now that this organization that I'm working with, they've gone to other industries and they've pitched the same thing. So
that's a great
yeah,
idea.
it's been very exciting to watch it happen.
Okay, so how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I have a website,
Okay.
Team Tata,
TATA.
teamtata.org. Yeah, teamtata.org. And, I would love to talk to people. As I said, I feel like my story of this call is not unique. I feel like God is really calling people
Yes.
out of their comfort zone. There's, every day, there's a great Hebrew word that I'm sure you know, hineni.
I don't know that word.
It means here I am.
Ooh.
And, as Abraham said it with
Here
his
I am.
son, and Isaiah said it. But going back to Isaiah 58, I didn't notice this at first. But first of all, I just love that. Every day I just say hineni.
I love that chapter.
But on Isaiah 58, after he says, what I want you to do is break off the chains of oppression and take care of. And he said, and if you do that, I am here.
Wow.
So he turns the words around. And I just thought, wow, it's a great partnership. So it's just amazing how God is calling people to do things that they least expected. But he really will go with you.
That chapter is so interesting because it opens up with, you call on me.
Yeah.
You want me to be near.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a second. It's a rebuke to people who want you to be near. And then he goes, you want me to be near, but you don't want to take care of the poor people.
Yeah.
Right?
You want me to help you, but you're not you're not doing what I want you to do.
Exactly. And you're like, we love your presence. Great. What are you doing for the poor? It's a little bit like James 3, right?
Yeah.
You say you have faith, but you got poor people with you. What are you doing for them? And then I love that chapter because it goes on to say, if you do these things, your light will break out.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that.
It'll break out, and it'll
You'll
be like
the repairers of the breach.
repair of the breach. This is so beautiful. And you are Isaiah 58 woman.
Well, you know what's the last thing about Isaiah 58, everyone that knows me has to hear all about Isaiah 58. But when you go on the House floor, they assign you a seat, and it's one of 100, randomly assigned. I go to my seat, I find my name on the list. It's seat 58.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
God is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Now I'm 62, but I was 58 for 2 years.
when you got elected.
When I got, well, and there, everything is seniority. So out of 100, when I first started, I was number 99
Wow.
out of 100. My father-in-law, when he first started, he was number 100. So I did think that was funny. I'm one ahead of him. But now I'm number 60. So as people, as campaigns go and people get elected or not, or retire, you move up in seniority. So I'm still
think about
not very
Isaiah
senior.
60, arise and shine.
I know, exactly.
Right? So
I always look at everything.
And next time you'll be 61, that's my number.
Well, I was 61. And that you go up and the lower the number, the high is the more
that's right,
senior.
the other direction.
But I was 61 for a couple months, and of course I went and looked at Isaiah 61, which is great.
Yeah.
And then now I'm 60.
Anne Ferrell, thank you so much for being
Well, thank you for having
on Cultural
me.
Catalyst. I really appreciate you. Appreciate people like you, people that are in our government making a difference, loving the poor, loving the broken, and also just extending the borders of the kingdom into our country. And thank you so much for being on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for everything you do. You're out there every day on the front lines.
Yeah, we both are.
Yeah.
God bless.
God bless you.